The next part of precious human life, after figuring out what it is to see the meaning and purpose of our life. And so this is spoken about from the Buddha's perspective, which of course includes the worldview of rebirth. You know, that we don't simply cease at the time of death, but that there's a continuity of consciousness that goes into the future life. So given, that this is the framework from which we're working in, and that there's valid reasonings that can support rebirth, then it changes what we consider the purpose of our life. Because if there's just this life, then living it up and having as much pleasure as possible is, nothing wrong with it. And the philosophy that many people have is of, do whatever you want to do and just don't get caught, then that philosophy would work, because we also have a very good way of rationalizing how when we do certain things it doesn't really affect anybody adversely. And so that works within the framework of one lifetime. However, when we think of karma and the continuity of consciousness and the fact that we experience in the future the results of the actions and habits that we've cultivated now, then that changes the whole formula, because it means that the actions we do now have an ethical dimension that we have to pay attention to. Okay? So given that, then, one purpose in our life becomes to prepare for death and for the future rebirth. And how do we do that? By cultivating wholesome actions now and avoiding non-virtuous or unwholesome actions. And so in that way prepare for the next life. Because that's something that's quite immediate. It could start today. We don't know. Okay, so to create the good karma that would enable us to have a good life. But then just having a good future rebirth isn't sufficient, because we're still stuck in the round of existence. And so then another way, more significant way to make use of our life is to use it to generate the wisdom that understands the nature of reality, which can free our mind from ignorance and clinging attachment and anger, so that we can attain liberation and get off this wheel of cyclic existence. So that becomes an important meaning and purpose in our life. But that too has its own limits, in the sense that it's just concerned with us getting out of cyclic existence, whereas we're very dependent on others. We care about others. They've been kind to us. And so if we have the intention to just care about our own spiritual development and forget everybody else, that doesn't seem very kind and very reciprocative, however you want to say it, to repay the kindness of those beings who have helped us stay alive and who have helped us practice the spiritual path. And so here we generate the aspiration for full enlightenment, whereby we'll have the wisdom, compassion, and power to be able to best benefit others and lead them on the path to liberation and enlightenment as well. And so this precious human life that we have has meaning and purpose, in that we can attain full enlightenment with it. And then also on a moment-by-moment means, this life has meaning and purpose in that we can transform anything we do into the path to enlightenment, so that we don't have to have a life where our spiritual life is at one part of our life and in one place on the planet, and the rest of our life is divorced from it. But instead we really integrate our spiritual practice with our daily life, for mostly by changing our motivation for even the simple daily actions that we do, and by using kind of metaphors to guide our minds. I was talking the other day about when we wash the dishes to think that we're cleaning the defilements from the minds of sentient beings, when we go upstairs to think that we're leading sentient beings on the path to upper rebirth and enlightenment. And so to make our life meaningful moment by moment, by really watching our mind and always continually putting it into a virtuous state. Okay? So, these three things, the upper rebirth, and then the definite goodness, which is liberation and enlightenment, and then making our life meaningful moment by moment, become the three spiritual meanings or purposes of our life that we have the opportunity to fulfill with this precious human life, which doesn't last long and is difficult to get. But having this kind of purpose, thinking about future lives and liberation, enlightenment, making our life meaningful day by day, this is something that's very different from the way most people in society think. Because if we were to go and, let's say, interview our parents and say, what was the purpose of your life? What would they say? My parents would say, getting married, having a career, having a family, having a good time with friends and family. Yeah, that's what, most people consider valuable and meaningful in their lives. And that's what society thinks, given this perspective of only one life. When you start to think beyond this life, and when you start to get a sense of our own spiritual potential, then we see that possibilities are much, much more expansive than we ever thought of before. And so most people in the world don't know about this, don't think of the expansive possibilities, or sometimes even if they hear about the possibility of becoming a Buddha where you never get angry again and, where you have equal impartial love and compassion for other people, they say, oh, that's crazy, we're inherently selfish, there's no way we can attain Buddhahood, that's just, jabber and meaningless, okay? And so, we really have to think very deeply over a long period of time to gain conviction in this kind of meaning and purpose in our life, because we live in a society where people have the opposite viewpoint and where they think we're a little bit wacky, But of course, when you know about rebirth and karma, then you look at how people who don't understand them live, and you think that's kind of wacky. You don't criticize those people, because the people are kind, and the people have Buddha nature, but you see that wrong views bring, unhappy results. Okay, and so then we make a stronger determination to practice, because we see really how rare and precious our opportunity is. Because most of the people, even people we know and we care about, don't actually have a precious human life, even though they have a human life.